at Brown University in a shooting that took place over the weekend. Let's cross live now to our panel. I'd like to welcome Republican strategist John Thomas in Dallas and Democratic strategist Haima Moore joining us today from Washington, D.C. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us this evening. This is a terrible incident. The victims, students at Brown University. First, I'd love to just get your thoughts on this tragedy and also how you think the police response to it has been carried out. And John, perhaps we could start with you.
Sure. Of course, my heart goes out to all the families and victims in this horrible tragedy. And, I wish we had more information. It looks like it's still developing. But look, I think the important thing here is that both the federal and state and local law enforcement work together collaboratively to bring to bear all the resources to track this perp who still seems to be at large. And then we can figure out how to prevent these things from happening in the first place. But right now, I think it's all about collaboration and using the latest tools and techniques that law enforcement has to bear to find this person.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point that I do want to come back to in our conversation. But let's turn it over to Haima just for a moment to get your initial response to this shooting.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. And I agree with John. My heart goes out to the members of these families, the entire Brown family and the Province family. This is really tough in any instance when these sort of things happen, and particularly right now as we enter the holiday season and there's so much going on around the world right now today. So I want to thank you guys at BBC for continuing to cover this story and bring light to this as we continue to hunt for this person who did this heinous crime. And I agree with John. The time right now is to stand behind law enforcement in the city and the state and the federal agencies as they collaborate to bring some justice.
We do know Brown University has canceled any in-person exams and sent students home for the rest of the semester. Let's take a look at the law enforcement response. It seems that they had a person of interest in custody. We now know that person has been released, and they don't believe that the evidence actually points to him. Instead, we're seeing this footage and these images released of a different suspect. John, what does that tell you about the way police have been handling this?
Well, look, I think there's, especially in today's social media environment in this, minute by minute news cycle, there's immense pressure to keep the public informed as to what's going on. So on the one hand, I understand why law enforcement would want to release a perp if they had him. But on the other hand, they have to weigh and balance keeping the public informed with making sure that they have the right person. It looks like they made a mistake there. Personally, I would rather them err on the side of keeping the public informed, but when they make a mistake, quickly correct it, then keeping us completely in the dark, because the American public and the world is so desperate to find out what is going on in real time. I understand law enforcement's trying to do their best.
I'm sure for many students, it's alarming to see that the shooter remains at large to this day. And there does seem to be some friction between how the FBI and local police have been handling this together. Haima, what's your read on that?
Look, these situations are always very tough when it comes to interagency cooperation. I worked in New Orleans, Louisiana, doing a mass shooting on Bourbon Street in 2000, I believe 15 or 16. And it's very difficult to, as John mentioned, to make sure that facts, the right facts are sought after and they're both disseminated to the public, but more importantly, they're considered in the investigation. And so you're going to see these sort of snafus happen. The mayor was on TV today ensuring that the public is as safe as possible. There's tons of law enforcement out on the street right now as kids went to school today. They go to school tomorrow around the city. And so I don't think the time right now is to draw a wedge between local law enforcement and the FBI. I think what we have to focus on right now is making sure that all these individuals they not only feel safe, are safe, but more importantly, that these agencies are working together right now and they're being as honest and transparent as possible.
Yeah, and that they're able to get this person off the streets as quickly as possible, right? John, it does seem, though, that state leaders were in some way hinting that the FBI was behind the tip that led them to get the wrong person of interest into custody over the weekend. They're now, going through, combing, looking for evidence after there's been huge snowfall in that region. And that really crucial window of time seems to have narrowed. How unusual is it to see this kind of public disagreement come to light in an investigation?
I've seen this happen with other agencies. There can be disputes over who has what authority and who's releasing which information. So I don't think that's terribly new. I think it's just this also really comes to a point with social media in the sense that the public demands answers, and so each agency is under pressure to release what they know and when they know it. And you can go back and look at other high-profile shootings recently, whether it's a Charlie Kirk assassination or others, and the FBI got in a little bit of trouble for releasing information perhaps a little too early. So again, it's weighing and balancing. I'm sure there are tensions all around, because at least the good news is every agency, whether it's state, federal or local, wants to get to the truth. And so we've just got to empower them, and not as the public, we can't pounce on them if they make a slight disclosure mistake and just hope that they keep collaborating to get to the truth.
Now, gentlemen, just before I let you go, I want to ask about gun violence in the United States. This weekend was also the 13th anniversary of the Sandy Hook shooting at a elementary school, and a nonprofit organization affiliated with them has released a statement saying their hearts are with Brown University as this tragic story unfolds. We cannot allow this to keep happening. We must end gun violence. And they, of course, want to see tougher restrictions on weapons purchases. Jaime, what do you make of this?
Look, I think there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be said over the next couple of days, and there are going to be a lot of time in the next couple of months to have these policy discussions. I tend to agree that largely, and I think most people do agree, that these types of mass shootings, mass murdering, mass assassination has got to stop and has got to wane at some point. We're talking about this almost daily now, not just across the country, but across the world. And so I do think that as policymakers are reckoning with these types of activity, they've got to ask themselves, what more can we do to ward off these bad actors or to curb some of this violence? And so I'm not going to prescribe what that policy is right now, but I do think it's worth the conversation. And when too many people have died, too many people are dying, not just in these mass shootings, but on these streets in Chicago, New Orleans, and Baltimore, and cities like that. And so there's got to be something that's got to come to bear soon.
John, would it not be helpful to make it more difficult for people to buy weapons? This is what Australian authorities are looking at doing after the terrible massacre on Bondi Beach.
Well, first of all, I want to get all the facts in the Rhode Island matter before we start prescribing, policy solutions. But I could say that Australia has much more restrictive gun laws than the United States, and that killer managed to get a weapon over there. So I'm not sure that more laws is the solution. But again, I don't think now is necessarily the time to figure out what the policy prescriptions are. I think it's to catch the bad guys, let the healing begin, and then we can start having that policy conversation about what we can do going forward.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for this conversation. I just want to point our audience toward the QR code there on your screen for more on this story. We've been speaking with Republican strategist John Thomas and Democratic strategist Jaime Moore. Very much appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you.
Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News.